Welcome to the Four Corners 912 project discussion on rules of the game. For a country to exist peaceably as a unified people in the game of life, we all must be playing by the same rule. The rules for our country were established in the Constitution that was agreed upon to abide by. This was and is the supreme law of the land.
To follow the rules, you must know what they are. They are few and clear. We hope to help you all to better understand what the rules are, as we are looking to elect new representatives in local and state government offices next year.
They take an oath to uphold the constitutions of both the state and the United States.
What are they to uphold and protect?
We will begin this regular discussion beginning with the Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments of the Constitution.
Welcome back to the 912 Constitutional Rights time. Last time we talked about our Amendment 1 of the Constitution of our Bill of Rights. We're going to follow up today with Amendment number 2, an area that everybody is very much aware of. Let's get to what it actually says. Bud, give us a heads up on it and where we go with it.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
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 What does that mean?
Put upon, violated.
Taking my guns away from me?
Curtailed. Well, even curtailed or somewhat limited. It doesn't have to apply to taking away. You know, infringed is kind of nebulous in a way. Limited, scaled back, any of those kinds of words is where you get infringed from, right? If I take your kids, okay, you tell them they're grounded for a week. You're not taking away their rights as a human being. You're only infringing on it a little bit for a week. You're just kind of limiting them for a little while. That's infringed. So it's actually rather encompassing. It means leave me alone. Right?
Okay, give me a quick rundown. We look at this, you can say, news is all over it. And we talk about Second Amendment rights, from our Constitution. Mm-hmm. Where does our Second Amendment rights come from?
That would have to come from, again, going back to these God-given rights. We have the right to self-defense. We have an obligation to protect our families, our friends. And we can't do that when the attackers are well armed and we're not. More recently, and in the history of our country, it would come from, again, we have to go back to what the British was doing before. Did I say British was doing? I'm sure I meant British were doing. And we all learned in the 7th grade about Lexington and Concord, the Battle of Bunker Hill, and so forth and so on. The British are coming not to take our guns. They were not coming to take the guns away from the colonists. They were coming to take the powder and shot. Because everybody had a gun. And a limited, the little pouch thing like Daniel Boone had. So everybody had that. But the main supply was kept in an armory, in a magazine, in a common store for that town or village or whatever. That's what the British were coming for. Your musket was nothing but a club if you didn't have powder and shot. Well, the British had powder and shot. Well, but the British had cannons. The colonists had cannons. The Second Amendment says nothing about rifles or swords or knives. It says arms. And so my personal belief is that we as citizens should own a tank and an F-35. Because the Second Amendment was written so that the citizenry could be as well armed as the government, because the government is going to take your liberty en masse. A murderer can take your liberty individually. The government takes it corporately. And we needed to be defended. The founders knew that we needed to be able to defend ourselves against a tyrannical government. And so instead of saying you have the right to keep and bear a rifle for hunting turkeys, that's not what it says. And I don't care what the courts, I don't care what our elected representatives say. That's not why it was written. None of the debate about it mentioned hunting. They mentioned defense against a tyrannical government. That was the debate during those difficult times that we had.
So our Constitution, Second Amendment, is to the oath of office that our officers take, our federal and state officers take, is to protect the Constitution, which is designed to protect and secure our rights. Second
Individual
Amendment
liberties.
and the Second Amendment right is to be protected, not given. It is not given in the Constitution. It is
Correct.
protected by the Constitution.
That is absolutely correct.
And so they can't take it away because they didn't have it. They didn't give it. It's not theirs to give. Our natural right that God gave us to protect ourselves.
You go back to the Declaration of Independence, which is a statement of purpose in all of the preamble before you get to the article of particulars. And the Constitution is the codification of what the Declaration of Independence says. And so when the Declaration of Independence says we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, they understood that the government did not give rights. They understood that. And that particular phrase goes on to say, and among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The original phrase was property, life, liberty, and property. But the what they called the Committee on Style changed it from property to pursuit of happiness. But then further on down, it says, and that to secure these rights, governments are formed among men. So it says right there, to secure these rights. And in the Constitution, we'll get to it later on, it says that this enumeration of Amendment 1 through 8 is not to be taken as a complete list. It's only stating a few. It's not a complete list of what our God-given rights are. We'll get to that in Amendment 9 when we get down there. But I like the way the Colorado Constitution phrases it. the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be brought into question, I think is the way it's worded.
I think it is, yeah.
And so I think that's a better phrase than infringed. It's the same thing, but brought into question is easier for us to understand than infringed. Okay. And while we're not going to get into case law very much, we'll mention a couple. But the two recent cases was the Heller case out of Washington, D.C., and the McDonald case out of Chicago, where the Supreme Court of the United States, in both cases, overturned lower court in holding that the Second Amendment means individual. It doesn't mean the National Guard or the Navy. And so many folks have said that first phrase, a well-regulated militia being necessary for a free state.
Yeah.
They make something out of that that refers to you can only keep a weapon if you're part of the army or what have you. No, that phrase is put in there to reinforce Article 1, Section 8, whatever it is, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 and 16. So we already had in the original Constitution the issue of the Army and the Navy and the militia. We already had that. So this phrase refers back to that, just reinforcing it, that, yeah, the government will set the standard, the federal government will set the standard for the federal Army and the federal Navy and what we now call the National Guard. Fine, we need those. But that's got nothing to do, if you read the whole thing, that first phrase has nothing to do with your individual right to keep and bear arms. And again, they understood it for your protection against the tyranny of a radical government. So that's Amendment 2. And directly, we will get to Amendment 3, which should be so easy. We'll introduce it when we come back.